What a show, what a show. Welcome to Facebook. So I'm glad you're in our space virtually. Do consider coming here physically when you can. Would love to see your face and, just offer a friendly hug. So come back if you're staying away for coffee and pajama reasons. So just try to make it out here. It's great to be with everybody. Just a lovely message I want to get across this morning, quite literally. But before we get into the message, I'd like to start with a song that will sort of get our hearts tuned to where we're going. So before we begin the song, have you gone to a place yet in your spiritual walk where God speaks to you in many different ways, like songs? So like you'll be dealing with an issue or a challenge and you walk into Publix or a grocery store and you hear over the loudspeaker the right song at the right time, and that lyric just goes right into your heart and it gives you the confirmation that you're not walking alone and that there are invisible hands helping your path and helping your challenge. So do listen with that intention when you hear this song. Hopefully the lyrics will be clear to you, and then we'll get into our message.
When the rain is blowing in your face and the whole world is on your case, I could offer you a warm embrace to make you feel my love. When the evening shadows and the stars appear, there is no one there to dry your tears. I could hold you for a million years to make you feel my love. I know you haven't made your mind up yet, but I wouldn't do you wrong. I've known it from the moment that we met. No doubt in my mind where you belong. I'd go hungry, I'd go black and blue. I'd go crawling down the avenue. You know there's nothing that I wouldn't do to make you feel my love. The storms are raging on the rolling sea, and on the highway of regret. The winds of change are like me yet. I could make you happy, make your dreams come true. Oh, there's nothing that I wouldn't do. Go to the ends of the earth for you, to make you feel my love.
So in light of that, we hear from Hafiz the message for this morning. The subject for this morning is love. The subject for this morning is love, and for tomorrow morning as well. As a matter of fact, I know of no better topic for us to discuss until we die. Now, as a Sufi, Hafiz is giving a little bit of a double entendre there as far as until we die. It's this dying before you die theme that you'll find in these true transformative spiritual teachings, that the self that is feeling separate from God and apart from the love of God will undergo such a radical reorientation and deepening of understanding that the love of God will eclipse the shadow of a feeling of a separate self, that your love and God's love will merge. Your mind and God's mind, your heart and God's heart will merge in a union that is the true meaning of life. And, Hafiz has another beautiful poem that says that the beloved and the present moment are one. The beloved, God, and the present moment are one. So when you are entering fully into this present moment with openness and surrender and trust and a willingness to put aside your projections and your agendas, and you allow the light of the now to actually enter into your awareness, you will be in union with God, because the moment and the beloved are one. We've never left God's presence. And so the beautiful teaching of transforming and dying before you die is being held out to us every moment, in every breath. And so this morning we want to just bring that to the fore of your awareness and have you see that this invitation is for you. Like, this is the other thing that the separate self has a really clever way of conjuring so that we get to hide. We make the separate self this special identity that seems so alien to the idea of God's love. Like, God's love becomes like a myth or folklore or something that other people experience, but not me. But what we heard in that song is the universal message that you are being loved fiercely, totally, right now. And that's where we are blocking it by our identity of the separate self that sees that as unreal or alien. So this dying to the self that we think we are, the surrendering of the self that we think we are, brings this fierce love, this sweet love, directly back into our heart. And that is what this separate self is longing for. This whole agenda that we have as the separate self is to find what is being held out to us every moment. But we're looking in a very skewed way, and we are off in a fantasy land of trying to get it according to the way that we think with our little thoughts. And so this is the invitation this morning. Come home to the present moment and let the agenda that you have about yourself and your life go. And with the going of the agenda, and this is kind of the side B to the message this morning, with the going of the agenda that's separating you from the love of God, you will also be letting go of the agenda that's been separating you from your brothers and your sisters in the human race. Because the beauty of this teaching is you will not experience this beautiful, abundant life and love if you are holding any human being, anyone, outside of this invitation, that they're unworthy or undeserving or too evil or too ignorant or whatever reasons that the mind conjures to make another human being disowned by God in your mind is what's keeping you from coming home to the beloved in this present moment. So that's the side B, or shadow side, if you will, of this whole message. Because he says it beautifully in A Course in Miracles, unless you are willing to give this instant where the beloved and you can meet to everyone you think of, you can't enter in yourself. So that's where we're going today, this divine union where you will experience yourself as wholly loved. Get that? Like, this is for you. Like, there's no alien person in God's mind. He knows, she knows you immediately, directly, and more intimately than you can imagine. That's the truth of the matter, and we have so much evidence cross-culturally that this has been true forever. We've been staving it off with our false beliefs and ideologies. As soon as we put those aside, this knowledge that we are wholly loved and wholly loving will come together, and they must come together. You cannot know you're wholly loved until you see yourself as wholly loving. And I need more work than y'all on the side B part. The wholly loving means there's no cruelty in you. You don't want to harm anyone or anything. It's just that's alien. Wanting to harm or even think harmful thoughts about another. All right, so that's our journey this morning. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to start with Hafiz. Let's see. So many. The quintessence of loneliness. I am like a heroin addict in my longing for a sublime state, for that ground of conscious nothing where the rose ever blooms. Oh, the friend has done me a great favor and so thoroughly ruined my life. What else would you expect seeing God would do? Out of the ashes of this broken frame, there is a noble rising child, pining for death. Because since we first met, beloved, I have become a foreigner to every world except that one in which there is only you. Or me, with a capital M. Now that the heart has held that which can never be touched, my subsistence is a blessed desolation. And from that I cry for more loneliness. I am lonely. I am so lonely, dear beloved, for the quintessence of loneliness. For what is more alone than God? Hafiz, what is more pure and alone? What is as magnificently sovereign as God? So I just felt inspired, especially because we've been rolling along with these world events of desolation and things that would shock and horrify us on a human level. And how do we look out at the world and see what goes on such a mass and murderous scale and somehow recognize that God is love and abide in the safety and trust that that is really the case when our eyes seem to betray that reality. And the thing that Hafiz is giving us in light of this dichotomy or chiaroscuro, this light and dark, is that out of the ashes of this broken frame, there's a noble rising, a new birth out of death. And so this trouble will always bring transformation. That's just the way it seems to move along. We have to get rid of what we've been containing down below in our subconscious and unconscious minds. And we have to see and rebirth the world anew. But in order to have this new birth, we, each one of us, has to die to the world that we see. This is going to be, this is why I was raising my hand about the side B message and how I oftentimes I'm so lured and pulled by the drama of the world, and I look to judge and criticize what I'm seeing in the way things unfold and what's going on behind the appearances and such, that I oftentimes find myself being really unsettled and not in a state of peace, and certainly not seeing everyone worthy as love. And what I've noticed, and we're going to get to this in the next poem of Hafiz, with the help of Lisa, my partner, who, if I can embarrass her for just a moment, she's like Snow White on steroids, but she carries Thor's hammer and uses it so expertly when she needs to. Thor's hammer that thunderously puts me back into a state of recognizing how I'm only hurting myself when I am condemning someone else. So, Hafiz, one of the dumbest things you can do is backbite an animal or a human being. Reason is, besides the fact that an animal who is feeling grouchy that day might bite you back, whenever you speak ill of any living creature, something of their shadow might fall on you. Some unwanted impressions of theirs could spill on your floor. And I imagine you are busy enough trying to keep things tidy. So he's speaking here of this interbeing, this hidden network of how all of our minds are joined and how we're all influencing one another in the occult or hidden dimensions of being. And if we speak ill of another, King Solomon said this in the Proverbs of the Old Testament, a little bird will fly those words to the person you're talking about. And so this is how we are all unconsciously impacting, impressing, and influencing one another. All minds are joined. Can't get out of that. We're quantumly bound. We're all arising out of the same quantum field. And we're all interconnected, interpenetrating, entangled. And what you do to one part of the web, you do to every other part. And everyone has their own energy signature. I just heard a story where, my name's being used finally in a good way. And it's become something that will definitely feed back. And this is how he says it in in A Course in Miracles. You'll know you've learned the lessons of peace when if someone says your name or even thinks about you, joy comes into their heart. That means you've learned the lessons of peace. When someone else thinks of you and immediately feels an upliftment from your signature, your energy, your spirit. So the same principle holds true for the dark side. You are never alone in experiencing the effects of your thinking. And he's saying, Hafiz, that something of that person's shadow will come and make a mess in your life. So sometimes you're like, why am I so damn depressed? Why can't I get out of this funk? Which sometimes I say to myself. And if Lisa doesn't say it to me, my inner voice will say it to me. Look at how many people you're criticizing. That is bound to impact you. It's bound to make a mess on your floor. Another one from Hafiz. The copper coin understands. The copper coin understands its place amongst the gold. Any words that can tarnish another, know they are meant to one day be discarded. From your speech, so know one day that they are to be discarded from your speech. And they will, as you mature, grow, ripe, and can nourish others more. I'm going to start this again. I lost the cadence. The copper coin understands its place amongst the gold. Any words that can tarnish another, know they are meant to one day be discarded from your speech. And they will, as you mature, grow ripe and can nourish others more. The sounds of pure gold are different than anything still alloyed. What they say never in any way harms. So one of the ways that we want to recognize how we're missing the beloved in this present moment is by the words that we speak about others. He's basically saying we are to refine our speech, our thoughts, our actions, but in this case, our speech. That all of our words are to go into this unalloyed state of being golden. So this is part of the spiritual path that if we're taking this life of inner development seriously, we will be very watchful of how we are unconsciously hurting ourselves. And one of the main ways that we can hurt ourselves is through the words we speak of others, right? Now, you didn't get this part. What about the words you speak about yourself? So that goes in both directions then. If you are wholly loved, whenever you are considering yourself to be worthless or a mess up or, guilty of something that is a stain that you'll never be able to get rid of, these are all alloyed statements about yourself. Remember, this is God coming to you to purify your mind and give you the love that this self has been blocking. If you're more devoted to this lower self, you'll miss the love. That's why die before you die includes dying to these harmful scripts that we've been talking in our heads to ourselves for decades. Do no harm to yourself as well as others. Let go of these harmful patterns and impressions that has made you feel less than. That's when the joy begins to really bubble up, because you'll be more and more in attunement with the beloved's presence in this moment. You can't hear the voice of the beloved over the script of self-condemnation or condemnation of others. And you always have a choice as to what you're tuning into. So on that note, laughter. What is laughter? What is laughter? It is God waking up. Oh, it is God waking up. It is the sun poking its sweet head out from behind a cloud you've been carrying too long, veiling your eyes and your heart. It is light breaking ground for a great structure that is your real body, called truth. It is happiness applauding itself and then taking flight to embrace everyone and everything in this world. Laughter is the pole star held in the sky by our beloved, who eternally says, "Yes, dear ones, come this way. Come this way toward me and love. Come with your tender mouths moving and your beautiful tongues conducting songs, and with your movements, your magic movements of hands and feet and glands and cells dancing. Know that to God's eye, all movement is a wondrous language and music. Such exquisite, wild music. Oh, what is laughter, Hafiz? What is the precious love and laughter budding in our hearts? It is the glorious sound of a soul waking up. That's one of the beautiful things that I treasure so much about my relationship with Lisa. We laugh all day. All day. That's all we do is laugh. And, this often comes at her expense, because I like to tease and joke, but this laughter is such medicine. And again, these are just pointers for all of us to keep in the forefront of our mind, that when the script comes to belittle you or criticize another, you can actually meet it with laughter. That is powerful medicine. If you take it so not serious, this inner script, whenever you feel this voice that speaks harm of you or harm of another, or if you're hearing that voice of harm from another, you could chuckle. When you don't make it significant, it's not. You know, he says this in A Course in Miracles, and this might be radical for some who don't know this teaching well. This whole entire universe that gives us the picture of separation and the impossibility of God's love and how we're in the dark and war and conflict, this whole world situation, he said it was a tiny mad idea that occurred in the mind of our higher self, and we forgot to laugh. And then he says, having forgotten to laugh, the effects of this mad idea became tragic. And when you look out from your five senses, which are part of the dream of separation, and they witness the dream of separation being real, how could you ever convince someone who stays at the five sense level that it's not a tragic world and it's just a joke? You would have to die before you die in order to know that truth that will set you free. This is the invitation that is being held out to each and every one of us. And it always comes with the question to you, what do you want? And how much do you want it? Once your willingness gets a clear focus of where your choices lie, and you only have two worlds to choose from, and this is a universal teaching, love or fear. You can see this permeating Taoism, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, everywhere. It's only two paths, and one ain't real. So it's pretty much a rigged game. But your free will can make you go down the road of illusion and fantasy if you so choose. But it's always this moment that the question comes to you. How much do you want it? And what do you want? And when your will gets behind the right choice, you're being met every step of the way. When you go into a grocery store, when you look at a license plate, when you hear somebody talking, when an unexpected blessing comes your way, and even when something horrible and devastating happens. Not that God's bringing that, but that you'll see the pattern and the purpose as to why that's actually going to help you in the long run. Emotional breakups, deaths of loved ones, physical illness, all of the things that appeared tragic at one time are turning into blessings when you die before you die. You'll have another way of seeing this moment, and you'll realize that you and the beloved are together. Finally, here with Hafiz. So remember what we were just reading about laughter when he says, It was when you have, give me 1 second. It was the perfect, pardon me. Oh, scratch that idea. Let's just go with this last one here. Everyone should be honored like this. Okay, so this is knowing the beloved and you in this present moment are one. And then knowing that in order to really authentically experience this oneness, everyone must be invited into it by you. So before we listen to this and take it to heart, whoever you're holding outside of this blessed moment, whoever's coming to mind, personally or impersonally, people that are halfway around the world or people that are in your own family, whoever you're holding in the shadow, allow that to, at least for this moment, to be lifted, and allow them to come into this moment with you. Everyone should be honored like this. When people come to my house for the first time, if they don't lean toward being too proud, I will kneel before them and ask for their hand and place the back of it against my forehead. Everyone should be honored like this. What else can make you grow to your full height? I am one of God's pillars in this world, and a proxy too, always carrying out his wish. And what of those for whom it would be best if they not see me humbly before them, on my knees, until they are ready? Well, at night in my prayers, I place my head upon their feet. I plant and help awaken a sacred realm in all who have entered my mind. So get the picture that he's saying. Everyone that he comes into contact with, he deeply honors. And the gesture, of course, was made clear to that person that they're being deeply honored. There are some people who would chafe and kind of backpedal at being honored with that kind of a gesture. And so if they're not ready yet, and some people aren't, they're not ready to receive love. They're not ready to receive honor because of the script that they're hearing. Then at night, he says, I don't place their hand at my head, I place my head at their feet. And in that bowing, I'm planting and helping to awaken a sacred realm in that utterly resistant person. That's the power of love. That's, again, in the Dhammapada, the Buddha says this, you can never undo the effects of hate by hating. You can't stop harming by harming. You can't end war by warring. Only love can do this. Not the wishy-washy, melodramatic love, but this deeper love that we connect to the quantum level of interconnectivity and spiritual reality. Recognizing that everyone is an expression of the sacred. And being so on fire for the sacred ourselves. And knowing, as the Dalai Lama said, it's the ultimate selfishness that you realize as you give this love to everyone, you're coming to your full height. There is one more Hafiz poem that I want to get to because it really speaks to where my love has been waning as of late. Let's see. Last one here. Inhabitants on other planets. I am wondering if someone slipped something in my tea about an hour ago. I feel like I'm on some mind-altering drug, and everything is telling me jokes. You know, it's not beyond God to take pity on many down here. He might surprise you someday and grind a few million tons of opium into a fine dust and then sprinkle it over your house so that you stop complaining. You might have to shovel your way out as if a big snow came along, smoking it, breathing it in all the time, as it were. Maybe God does that routinely for inhabitants on other planets who don't take politics and gender so seriously or something. So all of that to say, start seeing how you're making insignificance significant. Speaking to myself. That the ephemeral, transitory, fleeting moments of the body's life are not real. And so to put the stamp of reality and be wanting to dig into a position where you then create enemies in your world because of these labels and designations and ideologies is a recipe for insanity, and it will continually separate you from the beloved and what you truly want, which is the abundance of love back in your heart. Die before you die means also giving up polarizing ideologies. Oh, don't throw stones. See, one of the beauties of the seventh day, right, this is why we come to church, is you're getting out of the secular, mundane, worldly conversation. If this doesn't take you to another level in yourself, then this would be a disservice, not a church service. And so instead of seeing in this magic show that there are really enemies out there that we need to hate in whatever labels that we've given, we have to actually turn around on this Sunday and shine a light on how this is all being generated from a belief system. And we can't wait for others who are in the grip of their own insanity and maybe acting horrifically to change. We can't wait for that. Nor do we have to take the option of hating that until they change. Because that's like drinking poison and wanting them to stop or die. We have to turn around and shine this light on our ideologies. This is part of the dying before you die. Becoming utterly lonely means giving up all of these false associations that we keep in our consciousness that have continuously separated us from the beloved, who is all. Who is all. That's why, they say this in the Kabbalah. It's beautiful. In the spiritual dimension, there's no such thing as time and space. And so distance isn't measured in spatial points. Distance in the spiritual realm is measured by quality and affinity. You're nearer or further away from the beloved because of the qualities and the beliefs that you have that are unloving, impure, judgmental. That's what spiritually separates us from God. Why we can't see God. Why we can't know that we are the higher self. It's because of our polarizing ideologies. And you know this story where the village where this king had ruled, all of the water somehow got poisoned. You probably know this. This is going back in many spiritual teachings. The water got poisoned in the village except for the king's water supply. And so everyone became insane except the king. But because everyone became insane, they all thought the king was insane. That's to say, even if we're in a culture of insanity that is gripped in these polarizing ideologies, you still have your choice. What do you want? And how much do you want it? Will you perpetuate conflict? Or will you be like Hafiz, the pillar that awakens the sacred in all? Again, this is church. This is the message that would give you the true alternative to the way the world thinks. There's only one alternative, and that is you're God in drag, and so is everyone else. But we've been drinking the water that has made us completely insane, and we don't know who we are, and therefore we're acting insanely. So the solution is not picking a team. The solution is come out of the game of insanity. There are no two sides in reality. There's reality, which is all-encompassing love. And you're either farther or nearer to it by the way you are choosing to be. Is this making sense? So here's a workbook lesson from A Course in Miracles that I think sums it up very nicely. There is no cruelty in God and none in me. So again, one of the things we want to make sure when we listen to messages like this is we're going to have to examine ourselves, right? It's just part of evolving into spiritual awakened individuals. We'll have to cultivate insight and really, like Lisa likes to say, pick your bones. Look at where there's still the shadow and the darkness in your character. It's just part of the gig. You got to do this. But the important thing is when you're looking, don't condemn yourself. Don't feel guilty if you're still cruel. I mean, I'm not doing it, and I can be really cruel. But it doesn't mean that I want to perpetuate being cruel. I want to come out of it. I want to awaken. Because I want to awaken more than the script that I want to be cruel. So when you're listening to a message like this, it's not designed to perpetuate guilt in you or in another. It's designed to disappear it. So there's no cruelty in God and none in me. And he says here, no one attacks without intent to hurt. No one attacks without intent to hurt. So a thought, a word, or an action that is coming from this split mind that sees an enemy and intends to think or speak or act against the enemy is intending to hurt, harm another living thing. Period. Start there. Right? The phenomenology of the attack thought, bracket out everything else. Just look at the raw nature of that. Don't disguise it with your labels and your team and your ideology that makes you feel justified to attack. Bottom line, if you're attacking anyone, your intent is to harm life. And you're in control of that intention. You can do it or not. So there's no exception to this, he continues. When you think that you attack in self-defense, you mean that to be cruel is protection. You are safe because of cruelty. Are you sussing out how this goes under the radar? You're safe when you're cruel. I mean, I can go back in my mind and see how there's power that seems to accrue when, I stand up for myself and attack somebody else. Doesn't mean that you're wishy-washy, but it doesn't mean that you're cruel. You mean that you believe to hurt another brings you freedom. And you mean that to attack is to exchange the state in which you are for something better, safer, more secure from dangerous invasion and from fear. How thoroughly insane is the idea that to defend from fear is to attack? For here is fear begot and fed with blood. So in other words, when you see somebody that is acting insanely and you attack them, you are literally adding to fear on the planet and in your life. You're giving your spiritual energy to continuing this feeding of hatred and war on the planet under the guise of being on the right team. Is this speaking to anybody? And notice here, because I've seen some bristling over the past few weeks when I bring things like this up in service, which I think it's part of the process that we all have to look at ourselves and how we grip onto our ideologies. So again, just breathe, relax, and see if you can, if you're feeling triggered, step back from any part of the mind that just keeps wanting to justify cruelty under the guise of justice or goodness. Today we learn a lesson which can save you more delay and needless misery than you can possibly imagine. And it is this. Now, before I read this, I just want to remind all of us that we are God in drag, that our minds are very powerful. We're literally sparks of the creative light. And because of that, the world isn't happening to us. The world is occurring from us. This is why, when you drink that water that makes you insane, you really think that the world is happening to you. The world is happening from you because you're the ancient one who is appearing temporarily as that bodily form that you call your character in the movie. But it doesn't change the situation. You're the creator of your reality right now. So that's what he's about to tell you. This can save you a lot of time and wasted misery. You make what you defend against. You make what you defend against. And by your own defense against it, does it become real. And not only does it become real, it becomes inescapable. You make what you defend against. So you make your enemy. And then once you make your enemy, and you begin to defend yourself against that enemy, it becomes real and solid in your world and inescapable. So once you buy into it, nobody can convince you otherwise. Right, Lee? So the next thing is the injunction, the instruction. Lay down your arms. Drop your weapons. Let go of those attack ideas. Stop feeding cruelty. Stop willing harm on life. And only then will you perceive this whole thing as false and fabricated and made up. We got just a few minutes left here. And this is another workbook lesson that piggybacks on this idea. I have invented the world I see. Okay? So remember, again, this service is designed to bring your awareness back into touch with who you really are as pure consciousness and this wholly loved and wholly loving being. When you're wholly loving, you will meet the beloved in the present moment. And you'll know yourself again. And you'll see yourself in all beings. You'll see the Christ mind permeating all minds. And that is their reality, as it is yours. And when you've given up your harmful script, you'll know yourself as this. It's actually the simplest thing in the world. We make it very complex because we don't realize we're inventing the world we see. And we're waiting for something in this invented, self-invented world to show us what we need to do for ourselves. How about that one? Somebody out there that's really just a projection of my own mind, I'm waiting for that person to give me what I must choose for myself before I can see it. Is this wild? It's a joke that you've been playing on yourself, as I have. And, you know, again, the only reason why this can't ring as good news in your listening is because you really think somebody out there needs to pay for what they've done. He says this, you know, in this invented world, dreams or this invented world, dreams show you that you have the power to make a world as you would have it. And that because you want it, you see it. And while you see it, you do not doubt that it's real. Yet, here is a world clearly within your mind that seems to be outside. That goes for me. I'm within your mind. Now that gets trippy. I'm you. You called me forth in your awareness this morning. This is a part of your mind talking to you. And what I'm talking about doesn't come from a little separate character with an agenda, I hope. You do not respond to the world as though you made it up, nor do you realize that the emotions which the dream produces must come from you. It is the figures in the dream and what they do that seem to make the dream. You do not realize that you are making them act out for you. For if you did, now get this is why this doesn't ring as good news for some of us. If you realize that all of the emotions that you see as this outside world, that you feel about the outside world, this is my crescendo now, stay with me. If all of these emotions that you feel about the people out there, he says, you're making them act out for you because these are your emotions that you don't want to see that are caused by you. They're doing this to me. I wouldn't be cruel if he wasn't doing that. So you make them act out for you. You do not realize you're doing this. Now here's why. For if you did, the guilt would not be theirs. And the illusion of satisfaction would be gone. So there's a part of us, yes, you've called me forth to give you this message, and there's a part of you that's like, I hate myself for telling myself this. You're at war with yourself. There's a part of your mind that is bloodthirsty. And there's a part of your mind that wants to wake up. And you have to choose which one. You can't have both. That game is done. We're getting to the end. It's becoming unbearable. You have to choose. What do you want? Everyone's sacred, or everyone deserves to be murdered and slaughtered and tyrannically controlled. That's your world that you'll see. And the only reason why you're not immediately jumping to the world that everything is sacred and I'm going to love my enemy as myself, because my enemy is myself, is because there's a payoff for that little self that gets to think that the guilt is out there. I would never be that. I wouldn't be that horrible person. No, those are your emotions. And until you take total responsibility for that, you won't know yourself. There's only one being having a dream here. And it's time to wake up. And it's time to end this service. My goodness, I couldn't see the clock. So the blue bag is going to go around. If there's any feedback, any thoughts that you might have that you'd like to share, Rotten Tomatoes, anything. And Jude, are we still on Facebook? Okay. So if you're joining us on Facebook, we can have you join in supporting this service by clicking on the donate button. So the church and I greatly appreciate your contributions. Please remember to make it for the 8 a.m. service. So any feedback here? Fellow selves? A little melodrama. Just trying to illustrate a point, but I think I am sometimes. Thank you.
We have met the enemy and he is us.
Exactly. And we are very grateful for this offering. We bless it with the intention that it brings beings to true happiness and true freedom and the end of all harm. And so it is. Amen. Okay, my friends, you could stand. We're going to close out. Coming to this place where you can touch again this gentle moment within the heart. Find that conscious breath. And know that this moment and the beloved are one. And abide in your heart in the greatest intimacy. And within this union of self to God's self, we know that the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Amen. Have a beautiful afternoon. I love you. Thank you for being here. Course in Miracles tomorrow night, 7:15 in the classroom.